You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 18.
A podcast about love, color, and identity, and where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Vias.
Today is a fun episode. It's how to make small talk a success, or at the very least, enjoyable. And for me, I didn't always find small talk enjoyable. In fact, I couldn't even stand the idea of meeting somebody new, and I'm borderline probably social anxiety. And then I realized that it's so relevant in our lives, from anything from meeting somebody new for a date or making new friends, if you move to a new place, better networking in my career. And it was everywhere. And I was like, okay, how do you make this at the very least enjoyable and at the very most a success? And I have two techniques to make small talk a success. But first, I want to define success and what I mean by that. And to make small talk a success, that means that you move into kind of more of a conversation and you're still not searching for things to say to each other. The conversation perhaps moves into out of the realm of the getting to know each other part, or moves out of the realm of, okay, what should I say next part? So that's how I would define successful small talk. And I would also define it as it becomes a little bit more enjoyable to do it. So these two suggestions come from me actually using them in my life whenever I meet somebody new, whether that's socially or for work. So the first suggestion I have is to eliminate two questions that you ask someone when you meet someone new, and that is, where are you from and what do you do? And that means that you eliminate it. It doesn't mean that the other person doesn't ask it. It's only the fact that you don't ask somebody else, where are they from and what do you do? And it's a really effective strategy in improving small talk. However, I would have to say it's a really challenging thing to do because it's so normalized in our society to ask a set of questions when we meet somebody new. And it's kind of like this really big script that I think almost everyone on planet Earth has, and they go by it. They always ask you, where are you from and what do you do? So that's part of the challenge, is you're going to go against the norm. And the second reason why I found it challenging was actually, what do you do? Because most likely, in about 98% of the small talk conversations I've had over my adult life so far, is people ask me this question and then the expected script is to ask it back. And that brings me to my second suggestion, is how you answer those two questions. So where are you from and what do you do? When you are asked, where are you from? You could just say the city or the country that you're from, and then ask the question back. And then it kind of becomes a little bit back and forth. Then the next question is, oh, what do you do, etc. What you could do is answer that as an open question. So where are you from? And instead of answering the question, I would answer the question in a closed way. Well, I'm from Chicago. Instead, I would answer that question as, I'm from the city of Chicago, and I was born in Cook County Hospital, where the long-running television series ER is based on. And it happens to have one of my favorite actresses in that series. And so then from there, the discussion becomes a little bit more open. You add 2 or 3 sentences, and the conversation has kind of this launching pad in which to talk about something else, in which someone can connect to that story. They may not necessarily connect to the city of Chicago, but they may connect to the television show since it's been such a long-running television series, or they may connect to the actress or the actors in that series. I talk more about this technique of how to handle such questions in episode number 6, where I go through the fundamentals of how to answer questions that don't necessarily lead to dialogue. And then you could do the same for the next question, what do you do? And no matter what you do, no matter what role you play in your life, you can find a way to communicate that in a way that you love it. Instead of saying maybe the role or the title of what you do in your day-to-day life, you can give more information about what it is you actually do in your daily life. So if you're a student, you can talk more about what you're studying or a specific class that you're enjoying. And instead of just saying, well, I'm a student at this school, I will pick an example that I've used and I've changed a career several times, but I will pick what I think is one of my more boring careers. I used to test the quality of in a food production facility in a factory. And so I would do quality control checks. And it doesn't sound very exciting, and it wasn't exciting actually. So what I would say, and what I did say actually at the time that I was working, is that I work in a laboratory where I check the food quality for an ingredient that goes into about 80% of the beverages that you drink. And I would give a little bit more detail about the food ingredient, etc. And instead of just saying I'm a quality control technician, which that already just sounds so boring, and I would give a little bit more about what I do. And what I thought was actually kind of interesting about what I do, the fact that this food goes into about 80% of the beverages in the United States. And when I answered these two questions this way, I would say 100% of the time, the conversation went into another direction. And then I didn't need to ask the question back to the other person, where are you from or what do you do? And it went off and we started talking about different things. It works so well also because you are telling a story and you're telling a genuine part of your story. So it works well when you choose something that you genuinely like or love or find fascinating about where you're from or what you do. So I'll add in a third tip. If you come at a point where, okay, I want to ask another question or there's a lull in the conversation. And one of the types of questions that I ask people are open-ended questions, but more factual questions. Because it may seem easy in small talk to say, well, ask a deeper question to kind of get it out of that small talk realm. And oftentimes, depending on different people's comfortability, we often don't share our opinions right away with people that we've just met. It's a very difficult thing to do until you at least get some sort of basic information about each other. So an open-ended question that's factual. An example of this, let's say you're at a networking event or something like that, and you could ask, how did you find out about this networking event? Or if you're even on an online group, how did you find out about this online group? And that allows the person to answer the question however they want to answer it and tell their story about how they discovered this event or group. And they don't have to search or think, oh, well, what do I think about it? Or do I like it? Or an opinion. It's an easy answer that they have to that question. You know, how did you find this venue or something like that is also another example of that type of question. So I'm going to wrap it up by telling you some things that have happened while I've used this technique is one, when I don't ask someone where they're from or what they do, it eventually comes up in the conversation. but it comes up in the conversation in a story that they're telling. So it's only a tidbit or a part of the story. And so I found that that's kind of fascinating because people will still answer that question, but it ends up being in a bigger context. The other interesting thing that's happened is I've done this in different countries and in different languages where I have answered that question not with one word in an open way. And it works in the countries that I've tried this in, the languages that I've tried this in. So I found this also kind of a little bit fascinating, having more of a US background and having it done in another language in another country. So if you want more information about handling different kinds of questions that don't really make great dialogue, I highly recommend that you check out episode number 6. It's how to handle poor questions. And I'll check back with you next week.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.